What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Morning Mayhem. It's your boy Chris coming at you with another episode. Super glad to have you with us this week. I've got a couple things to cover. Not a very long episode this week. We'll get into that a little bit more, but I do want to say first and foremost, thank you so much to all of our new subscribers and followers, and don't want to forget the OGs. If you've been around for a long time, you are near and dear to my heart. But for all the new subscribers and followers, I definitely want to thank you for checking us out. Because of you, the Morning Mayhem has actually hit that kind of first stage of monetization over on YouTube.
Nice.
Which is great, you would think. And it is. It opens us up to some monetization opportunities. Not full-fledged monetization yet. We're still a little bit a ways from that. But not only does it open us up for some opportunities there, it does put us up under the microscope a little bit more. In fact, we've already had one video taken down since being monetized. They've done some reviews on the channel. One of the videos was taken down because of self-harm, talking about a young man who was on TikTok that accidentally... Yeah. And so they took that one down, didn't strike the channel or anything like that. But it's interesting to see how quickly they found something after they approved us for our, like I say, that first level of monetization. So I want to stress to you guys again that while YouTube is the larger platform that we are on, for sure reaching the largest audience possible, which is what I really want to make sure we're doing, we are on these other guys as well, and anything down here. So YouTube, Rumble, and Odyssey will always have our full episodes. BitChute, I try to get the segmented stuff out there on it, just because it won't allow me to upload the full episodes to it because of the size of the files or length. I can't remember which one it is. But if you ever go on one and you don't see a specific show that I've done, look on one of the other platforms. It should still be there. Some of these are free speech platforms. Some of them very much so are not. So I have to try to play nice in order, again, to reach the largest audience I can. And again, I don't do this for monetary value. I do this because I believe in entertainment and education and having fun with you guys. And a lot of the stuff that I do share from a news perspective is stuff that other content creators are sharing, but all of our voices are fairly small independently until you put them all together and you get this really great collective of voices. But it's stuff you're not hearing on mainstream media. And a lot of people are just kind of normies when it comes to that and don't actually seek out the knowledge. So I just want to be a net positive in that regard. And you guys may not agree with what I say. Perfectly fine. If I do share something, though, I do always try to share receipts. Make sure you do look in the show notes below. Any articles, any data, anything that I use, I always mention or reference it in the show notes down below and have a link to it so you can go behind me and check and make sure that I'm not lying to you or taking something out of context. So just something to think about there. I do owe you guys also, because I did hit the 50 follower mark in Rumble and over 500 on YouTube. So I do owe you guys the live stream. I promised I would do my first live stream on both of them independently, just kind of to celebrate those two independent milestones. And then I may do them together. I don't know quite yet, just because of the free speech platform versus the not so free speech platform. But I am looking at the best software I want to use, how I want to go about doing that, which guest I want to have on, which topics I want to talk about, because I want to make sure that the first one, it's an homage to you guys. I mean, you guys have pushed me over these limits or milestones or whatever, and really been there for me and the channel. And so this is I still get nervous on the live streams because, like with filmmaking, you have your actors that do plays. There's one take, and that ain't for me. So most of you know that I'm a filmmaker, and I like the fact that I can say cut and we can do it over again. And that's the one benefit more than anything of taping the show is I'm not live. So I'm always a little bit nervous. I don't want to say anything wrong, and I don't want to have any misinformation. And I'm a little nervous just being in front of you guys live. But I'm going to do it because I said I would. And I think a lot of people enjoyed live streams, the chats, interacting with not only me and the guest I may have on the show, but interacting with each other, because we got a phenomenal community starting. I've seen a lot of you guys going back and forth in some of the comments, specifically in the reactions channels. Speaking of which, with this being a shorter show today. There'll definitely be some more reactions coming out this week to kind of fill that void. So keep an eye out for that if that's something that you're interested in. But yeah. So lastly, I will say again, this has been a pretty busy week for me. I've had to work in our office all week this week instead of from home. So been limited on how much research I can do and how much time I can invest here. Not that I do that while I'm on the clock. But just getting up earlier, going to bed earlier so I can get up earlier, the drive to and from the office, just all that stuff kind of impacts and takes away from the time that I can devote to this. So again, kind of a reason there for a shorter episode. My wife and my daughter have both been sick this week, so I've been trying to take care of them and bring them back to health. I've had a little bit of my own medical stuff that I've had to attend to. And I'm fine. Don't worry. Everything's good. But that's taken up a little bit. And I got me a new toy. America! Yeah! So with all that said, we do have a short show today. We've got more reactions to come. I'm not going to stretch this out any longer. Let's go ahead and get into our first story today. So our first one today actually comes from the New York Times. I know it says Yahoo News, but New York Times wants money and nah. So New York Times, frustrated Californians may be ready for a tougher approach to crime. Let me come back here for just a second. Here's something I've said for a while, and it makes sense to the people I say it to, depending on who I say it to. Sometimes they're like, I don't know. When I think about politics, and understand this, I don't care who you vote for. I don't care if you're a liberal, a conservative, a lefty, a righty, a independent, libertarian, Green Party. If you're watching this show, I hope you're seeking out the information, like factual information. Now, I'm going to have my bias. I am definitely a right-leaning bias kind of guy. But as you're going to see here in a little bit, we're going to talk about minimum wage, and you might go, got kind of a lefty perspective on some of that stuff. I'm a free thinker. I don't have loyalty to a party. I honestly don't. There's a lot of people on the right I don't agree with. Like, I like Trump and what Trump did and what he's doing and what he's going to do. So I like him, but that doesn't mean I'm going to vote for somebody else just because they got an R next to their name. There's been Democrats I've actually rather thought fondly of, independents that I've thought fondly of, libertarians. In fact, before I voted for Trump, I voted for a libertarian, Gary Johnson. Seemed like a really good dude, had it together, and I sleep well at night knowing that I casted my vote for him. People may feel differently, but you know what? That's your thing. That's fine. I'm still going to sleep fine at night, with a CPAP machine because I'm out of shape and fat and stuff. But that's beside the point. But anyways, I love the fact that you're here. Conservative, liberal, I don't care. So understand when I go into these stories, yes, I'm going to have my own bias, but I'm also going to try to be as fair as possible. I don't think the mainstream media can say that. They're going to have their slant on it, either left or right or whatever. And they're going to lean hard into it, and they're not going to make their sources available. I'm going to do that. Before I get into this is something I'll have to say, and this is where you're going to get a lot of my own personal bias and observation from it. Okay. So this is an opinion piece. When I think about family structure, I think about the father being the more structured parent, disciplinary, and kind of creating the lane from which the family operates, the child is raised, kind of being the overseer of that kind of thing. As far as, like I say, the structure, the discipline, maybe even the reward, I don't know. Then I think about the mother being the more sympathetic and empathetic and loving and more from the heart, passionate, caring individual in the relationship. And I believe that it takes both to have a successful upbringing of a child. I think it's crucial to have both of those elements. And fantastic. That being said, I look at our political system. And I look at our Democrats and I look at our Republicans, and Republicans are kind of known to be the law folks, right? Like, hey, we're going to stick to the law. We're going to lock people up. They're the more masculine, the more structured, discipline, follow the rules, kind of create the lane of which all traffic flows and everything is supposed to be. Whereas the left seems to be more passionate and empathetic, sympathetic, and all that stuff. And, you know, we're not going to arrest people. We're going to let them go. But then bad stuff happens. And then the right has to come in and clean that up. And then the left is like, okay, well, too much law. And then it pushes back. And then they start electing people from the left. And then things get out of hand again. Then they elect people on the right. I've heard several different commentators speak to that as far as like, oh, you know, having a wartime president. You want a conservative as a wartime president because they tend to handle that better than a Democrat does. And I definitely see pros and cons to both. And I think it is great that we do have both. And hopefully we can eventually get back to finding some middle ground instead of either my way or the highway kind of thing, either far right or far left, and no meeting in the middle. We got to find that meeting in the middle because I think that's where we find our harmony, and that's where most people live, at least in this country. I think most of us live closer to the middle than we do on the far edges. Not everybody, obviously. You may be at one of the two ends of the spectrum, and that's fine. I think it's a little odd, but whatever. My point is, I wanted to throw all that out there because what I'm going to say in this article is going to, kind of reflect that thought process anyway. So, frustrated Californians may be ready for a tougher approach to crime. So, kind of my little note is like, California turning red? Because that sounds like more of a conservative approach. Like, we want to be tougher on crime. You're not really hearing that from Democrats right now. It's more defund the police, get social workers out there instead of cops. Let's not lock somebody up because of X, Y, Z. Let's let them go. But we see what that crime has done, not just in California, New York, and all over the country. We see what's happening at the border. So again, that may be some of my, personal bias showing, but that's the way that I have viewed the two parties on how they're kind of structured from a structural standpoint, if that makes sense. And I don't know if that does, but we're going to go ahead and look at this real quick. I think it might be a lengthy article, so I'll do my best to cover as much of it as possible. Again, the link will be in the description below, so you can go check that out, but I will kind of run through it so we're not here all day just checking out one article. But again, this is from New York Times. It says, deodorant, shampoo, and underwear are all under lock and key in many stores in California. Retail clerks are often told to ignore shoplifters after a handful of store employees who confronted thieves were assaulted or killed. Video clips of smash and grab crews snatching armloads of merchandise have gone viral. Yes, they have. We've even covered some of that. Californians of all political stripes have become fed up with the problems plaguing supermarkets and retail stores, not to mention car break-ins and open-air drug use. Some top Democrats, including San Francisco Mayor London Breed, have joined conservatives in denouncing a cascade of smaller crimes that have contributed to a sense of lawlessness in major cities. Now, the state's lawmakers and voters are weighing what to do, with public sentiment in the state shifting toward stiffer punishment. California finds itself debating whether to roll back decade-old changes that sharply reduced the state's inmate count and made it a leader in reducing mass incarceration. A coalition of law enforcement figures, business owners, and relatives of fentanyl addicts want to reverse the 2014 ballot measure known as Proposition 47, which reduced penalties for shoplifting and drug possession. That measure has been blamed so often for the state's crime woes, that it is among the few past initiatives that residents can identify by number, right up there with Proposition 13, the state's landmark property tax limitation, and Proposition 209, the state's prohibition of affirmative action. This is all sounding very conservative-y. With financial, well, not what they've done. What they've done has been very liberal, but I mean, the frustrations with it sound very righty-tighty, if you get what I'm saying. With financial help from giant retailers Target, Home Depot, and Walmart, the coalition has gotten a ballot measure qualified for the number November election that would impose harsher punishment for crimes that result in lighter charges or no prosecution today. Let's just stop right there and talk about it for just a second before we get into sicko Gavin Newsom. But Target, Home Depot, Walmart, these organizations getting behind this is a big thing. Why is that, Chris? Well, because they want to make money. The only way that they're going to make money is to have stores that can open and function and be profitable. In places in California, New York, Chicago, I know we can argue about this, but large cities, which are predominantly run by Democrats, fair enough. So maybe it's a large city thing. Maybe it's a Democrat thing. I will say the punishment for crimes follows the Democrat part more than anything else. So, because of the influx of crime, shoplifting in the parking lots of these establishments, these places getting broken into, gosh, think about Black Lives Matter protests that I know Target, I've seen several times getting broke into, burnt down, stuff like that. Yeah, these people want to be able to open their business and operate. And when they have to pull out because their businesses are getting ransacked and they're not profitable and they're losing their ass, wherever they are, you got, these Democrat congresswomen from the, God, I can't even think of what they're called. Not the crew. What are they called? The clique, the whatever they are. AOC and Rashida Tlaib and all of them. Anyways, I don't know why I can't think of what they call them. The squad, whatever they want to be called. That's cute. But you got them coming out saying, well, CVS is leaving certain cities. They're blaming theft, but we just know it's racism. Well, look at Target pulling out over here. Must be because they're racist. Race may play a role in it for you when you evaluate it. When you say, oh, well, this is a largely, let's say, black community, and these businesses are pulling out. You ask the businesses why they're pulling out, they say, because of the crime. One may have to do with the other. And I definitely won't tell you that black people by nature are more destructive or whatever than white. Definitely not. Look at the history of the world, right? But within these communities, you see that. But it's that easy target. Oh, well, you can't pull out because you're going to affect black individuals and families. Oh, you can't pull out because you're going to affect, in this community, there's a lot of gay people in this community, and it's going to negatively impact them. Oh, but over here, it's an impoverished area, and if you pull out, yeah, but that's where the crime is. Why would I open it? Why would I, as a business owner, open a business somewhere that the people who shop at my business are doing less shopping and more shoplifting? Keep doing that. Little bunny for
Get on with it. Yes, get on with it.
So, why would I do that? Why would you do that? You wouldn't, because you're not an idiot. And I know you're not an idiot. I don't care if you're a liberal, a conservative, if you're new to politics, if you're completely independent, you are watching this, makes you not an idiot. You would not open your business in a place where you are 90% sure it was going to get shoplifted largely on a regular basis. Now, don't get me wrong. Every business has a tendency to have some shoplifting, either externally or internally. That is accounted for. They figure that into the budgets and everything like that because it's going to have that kind of shrinkage. Trust me, I've spent most of my adult life working in retail. I've made stops with loss prevention. I've assisted them in stops. I know I've busted some of my own employees. It happens. All that being said, it's one thing to have a few $100s stolen here and a few $100s stolen there over, months or years or whatever. It's another thing to have your store consistently ransacked, completely destroyed, merchandise stolen, and basically having to start over and over again. So these businesses coming out in support of this coalition are doing it not just of their own like greed. I'm not trying to say that they're greed, but they want to have businesses in those areas. Yes, they want to open up businesses and be profitable, but it also allows them to serve those areas. So you would think that people on the receiving end would want that as well. The problem is that those voices have been hushed and pushed down more so than the ones that are like, I'm going to shoplift if you open up over here. So, there's that. So it's exciting to see these businesses get on there, because maybe these politicians and the folks that are more influential will listen when it's not just a bunch of screaming, constituents out there who politicians rarely ever listen to. But you got these huge businesses, Target, Home Depot, Walmart. Those are pretty big names right there. Maybe it's time to listen to them. I don't know. We're going to keep reading here. We're going to talk about America's favorite governor. Many Democratic state leaders, including Governor Gavin Newsom, the snake oil salesman, have acknowledged the state's crime problems. Newsom was captured on a hot mic, oh my goodness, in February, describing a shoplifting episode at a Target store in which he witnessed a man shoplifting without being confronted by anyone. I was like, why am I spending $380? Everyone can walk the hell right out, he said. Yeah. Because of your laws that you pushed.
Dumbass.
Just saying. But Newsom and Democratic legislative leaders say changing Proposition 47 is the wrong way to go. Of course it is. It might hurt somebody's feelings. They argue that the new ballot measure would result in thousands more incarcerations at a cost to the state of hundreds of millions of dollars at a time when Democratic leaders want to close prisons. They want to leave Proposition 47 intact and pass legislation in August that would tighten laws on retail theft and repeat offenders. Who cares how many people are incarcerated? If they break the law, and I said this last week about Trump, about these other, we were talking about Gold Bar Menendez, right? If he broke the law, charge him, hold him accountable. If he goes to jail, he goes to jail. Trump, if he broke the law, hold him accountable. If he goes to jail, he goes to jail. I do not care your political party, what your last name is, who you're affiliated with. It's not about equity. It's about equality. Politicians don't get held to the same standards that you and I do, but they should. That's equality. These people out here, lock them up. They don't have a problem giving millions upon millions, if not billions, to illegal immigrants coming into this country that are breaking the law just by being here and not crossing over at a port of entry. They don't mind talking about spending millions upon billions of dollars in reparations or other stuff like that. But they can't spend millions to incarcerate dangerous criminals. And I emphasize that because, yes, I understand shoplifters may not necessarily be dangerous, but you got to understand this goes beyond that. We're talking about dangerous criminals are being let go. New York is a great example. We've seen that where people get locked up all the time. They're like, I'll be out in 24 hours. And they go kill somebody. Imagine if we applied the law and punishments, incarcerations, whatever, like we should. Those animals, and they are animals. If you kill somebody, you're an animal. Call me sexist, racist, phobic, whatever. If you kill somebody, you're an animal. Let's just put it out there. That's what Chris thinks. Let's lock them up and leave them locked up till they serve their time. And look, I'm gonna slide over to the left real quick and say, I'm perfectly cool with having social workers or whoever in the prisons to try to help reform these people. I think this should be an opportunity to correct, not just punish. Yes, punish. Absolutely punish, because they need to be punished. But if they are going to be freed at some point, if they're not serving a life sentence, they're going to be out in the real world again. That being said, it would be great to reform them, to help them get back to being a productive member of society before they're released. I'm completely down with using taxpayer dollars to fund something like that. I think that would be a great use. So, whereas I may lose some conservatives on that, I don't think I'll lose that many because I think conservatives are compassionate about stuff like that. But yeah, maybe I'm dipping over to the other side. I don't know. But I think that's fine. But we still have to punish the wrong. We still have to punish the wrong. We got to be a little stricter, guys. It says Proposition 47 reduced most drug possession crimes to misdemeanors and raised the threshold for thefts to be charged as felonies to $950 in property or more. See, why is that a thing? Why is that a thing? If you are in possession of a drug, I don't think you should be penalized nearly as much for what you're doing to yourself as you should be if you're stealing anything from someone else. I kind of have the you do in your bedroom what you want to do kind of mentality when that goes. You want to take drugs, you want to like cut yourself and stuff like that, go do it. Have fun. I hope you get help. I would love for you to see you get some help. But you've got to make that decision. Because at the end of the day, the only person you're hurting is you. You can say you're hurting family and stuff, but directly the only person you're hurting is you. And I would rather you do that than to go out and destroy businesses, take someone else's life, assault, in a sexual way. You guys know what I'm saying here. Somebody, there's just so many things that people are doing that, yes, I would rather you be at home doing whatever to yourself. I would rather you not do that at all. But if it was one or the other, yes, don't hurt innocent people. I think that's fair. I think that's completely fair. That being said, I'm okay with not punishing drug possession, but yet still punishing theft of someone else's property. But I digress. It says the measure allowed people to get out of prison early if they were incarcerated under the old laws, and it reduced the number of people sent to prison. It also funneled hundreds of millions of dollars to services for people returning home from prison. Okay. Helping to reduce the rate of recidivism, according to a study by a state regulator. So again, I'm fine with that. But in California, they were going to put in like public toilets. One public toilet was going to be like $5 million or over $1 million. It was, I don't remember how much it was. I'm wrong. I know I'm wrong. Fact check me. But it was like this absolutely insane, ridiculous amount because the people building it had to get a license, and then they had to get approval, and then they had to get code. And there's so many different people that got money along the way from the political side. It's just a stupid game. So that's more taxpayer dollars being wasted. I would rather see that being used over here to help rectify situations with prisoners getting back out in the world. So let's see. I saw Newsom's name. We'll jump down to that. Newsom, by then distracted by national politics after Joe Biden's disastrous debate, quickly abandoned that effort, saying they could not get it done in time to place it on the November ballot. At the same time, negotiations with the Tough on Crime coalition to kill the more sweeping initiative failed. They refused, opting to instead push a ballot measure that would revive policies from the era of mass incarceration and the failed war on drugs, Newsom said. I don't think those two should have been tied together in that proposition, so it shouldn't have been that hard to undo it. That's my opinion. I think we've kind of beat this dead horse here. I don't believe this goes into too much more that is worth discussing, but I do encourage you to read this article for yourself, whether you read it from the link below that points to Yahoo News, so anybody can read it because there's no charge for that. Or if you're a supporter of the New York Times, you can go check it out from them. But yeah, it does feel to me that people are waking up and wanting to have more protection. Maybe they want to see their streets get cleaned up. They want to see criminals be punished. How shocking is that? They want people that aren't criminals to be able to live their lives and just walk down the street without having to worry about getting mugged. A lot of this is very based conservative views coming from a very blue state. Now, I have heard people say, and I haven't broke this down myself, so maybe I should. No. So I have heard that California is not too dissimilar from a lot of other states, that if you look at county by county basis, it's a fairly red state. But when you look at the population, those bigger cities and whatnot, they just overwhelm with how blue they are. That's what somebody told me. There's a lot of red in California, but it's those blue cities, just like in everywhere else, like in Georgia, Atlanta, and mini Atlanta, Macon, blue cities, you know, and I mean, that's cool, whatever, I guess. But yeah, that's where they need the red the most to kind of push through this. And again, whether you're conservative or liberal really doesn't matter. I think we can all probably agree that when it comes to law, orderly conduct, pushing for structure, maybe we can't agree, but I'm going to say anyways, I think the right does a better job at that. I think the left is more compassionate about stuff, which has its place for sure. But I do think the right is more structured, more disciplinary, and really does a good job of all that. But let me know what you think in the comments below about that. I would very much so be interested to see what you guys say, whether you're liberal or conservative or whatever, but let me know down in the comments below what you think. And I hope I didn't beat anybody up too bad on that one. All right. So let's go ahead and jump to our next story here. This is from NPR, and this is where I'm going to sound, I don't know, maybe a little lefty, maybe. We'll see. So this has to deal with the federal minimum wage. So NPR has now been 15 years since the federal minimum wage rose to $7.25. I do kind of feel two different ways on this, right? I'm with the Ron Paul, not Rand. I do love me some Rand Paul, but I'm in the Ron Paul camp of just get rid of the minimum wage and let companies compete. But then I'm also of the mindset that if we're not going to do that and we are going to have a minimum wage, to be fair, it should be better. It should not be $7.25 an hour. Again, I know I'm going to lose some of my support on the right on this one. I don't think it does well for our economy to shoot it up. We've seen these states push out there, $15 minimum wage. That's doubling the federal minimum wage. That will and has destroyed businesses trying to keep up. I don't agree with that. I think it needs to go up gradually because, one, folks getting paid minimum wage do deserve more. I don't care if they're flipping burgers or they're just, cleaning the bathrooms or they're doing what, all these little jobs people always reference. It's still a job. It's still a human. Their time is worth something. And I know we can say, oh, these are entry-level jobs. They should be getting entry-level money. Yeah, but $7.25, somebody has to work an entire hour to even afford one of the meals that they're cooking. You know what I'm saying? To me, that's a little crazy. I do think it should be more, but at the same time, and they do to get the short end of the stick and the way that I'm proposing it, it does need to be closer. I don't think it needs to be 15 necessarily. I don't know what it needs to be. We can look at it and we can discuss that. It should be closer to 15 than it is to 7.25, I think. And it would be great to get there tomorrow and get everybody in the minimum wage field where they should be. And then jobs can absolutely compete a little bit more, but then you're also competing against being replaced. So there's that. But by saying that, if it was a slow burn to get there, if it's been 15 years, so let's say we bumped it up to 9-10, I don't think that's going to be enough to make businesses go, you know what, we're done. We're replacing you guys. Bump it up to 9-10, 3, 4, maybe 5 years from now, go up to 12 or 11 something, just a couple dollars here, nothing insane, but a couple of dollars. over time, it'll get there. I also have a thought of how this should go, but I'll mention that later. Let's go ahead and get into the article and just see what it says. This is from NPR, so I'm always interested to see their slant on things because they definitely have an interesting slant. But with this particular topic, I might kind of line up with them a little bit. So let's see. Well, fair wages. So that's from they got the masks, which they could just be liberals because they wear masks a lot. No offense, guys. I'm just saying, y'all very cautious. All right. So the most recent hike to the federal minimum wage occurred in July 24th of 2009, back when former President Barack Obama was still in his first year in office, and the Black Eyed Peas topped the Billboard charts because that's relevant, I guess. At that time, it rose 70 cents from $6.55 per hour to $7.25. I've got a little chart down below here we're going to look at. Not my chart, their chart. And it does a pretty good job. Brings back some memories. And it has stayed there for the last 15 years. That's the longest stretch the national minimum wage has gone without an increase since the U.S. instituted the pay standard in 1938, according to a Department of Labor timeline. Meanwhile, the value of the dollar has diminished and prices on everyday goods have taken off. I am not an expert in this, but in the studying that I've done and the research I've done, I appreciated what people have said about when we used to be on the gold standard for our money. And then we got off the gold standard and the value of our dollar quickly began to diminish. We don't really have anything backing our dollar bills other than the government's word. They don't have, you can't exchange cash money for gold like you could back in the day. I mean, I guess you could buy the gold. Yes, maybe that's the same thing. I don't know. But it's not, it doesn't hold the same value. Whereas you could buy a gold bar back in the day, you can buy a coin now. And because of that, it's affected us on the world stage, but it's definitely affected us here at home for sure. We'll go on, but I do want to mention the gold standard, and I think the concept of that made sense. And I would love to see us get back to some kind of standard so that we're not just printing money and destroying, our monetary system, because we really are. And of course, it is the lower middle class people that suffer the most, because every percentage that you take away from us hits us harder than any percentage you take away from, upper class folks. They don't feel it nearly as much as we do. And I say we, I'm 100% with you guys. Let's see. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. That's not to say that all minimum wage workers in the U.S. make $7.25 an hour. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, around 869,000 workers in the U.S. earn the federal minimum wage or less in 2023, more than 2/3 of whom were women. We're not going to have that argument right now. Just saying. You want to talk about it? We'll talk about it, though. Says some workers may earn less than the federal minimum wage because there are exceptions built into the law. Businesses are only required to pay tipped employees $2.13 per hour in direct wages under federal law, though employees have to make up the difference if those wages plus tips don't equal the federal minimum wage. Other carve-outs to the minimum wage requirement includes some workers with disabilities, employees under age 20, and full-time students. Walmart takes advantage of that big time with the workers with disabilities thing. They're not just, hey, we're going to do it because we're sweet. No, they get to pay them less. They take full advantage of it. As far as, and I've said this until I'm blue in the face so many times, but these restaurants that only pay $2.13 an hour for wages and then expect them to make the tips on top of that, they're closing their doors. They're saying, oh, we can't find any good help. Do you know if you only paid $1 more an hour or $2 more an hour for the time that you're open, let's say you have 10 waiters or waitresses, right? And you're open for business. You're a small place. You're open for business for maybe lunch and dinner, or just dinner. I don't know. You know, however many hours that is, 10 folks, you know, call it 8 hours. That's 80 hours. $2 is $160 more. Something like that. Did I do the math right? I don't know. Public school, remember? But it's not going to break the bank. But just a dollar or two more an hour plus their tips. Do you know how much more stoked someone would be to work for you than your competition who says, I'm only doing the minimum for you? If you're like, hey, I appreciate my employees so much, I'm going to give you guys a couple dollars more than what I have to because I want the best of the best. Just a couple dollars more can make a huge difference in somebody's life. And that's my opinion. I've pushed that for a long time. If I ever open a restaurant, I truly believe that I would be all in paying my waiters and waitresses more because they are the frontline workers. They are the face of my business. I don't want somebody coming in and doing a crummy job. I can replace them in a heartbeat if I'm paying more. They have more incentive to work harder if I'm paying them more, right? And ultimately, my business is going to benefit by having the best people in the right positions. But I get it. I'm not there. I can't speak to it. I can only assume what I would do. But whatever. Moving on. In 20 states, mostly in the South and Midwest, the federal minimum wage is in effect, according to the Economic Policy Institute. The other 30 states and Washington, D.C. have minimum wages higher than the federal standard, according to EPI data. Additionally, at least 63 cities and towns, including New York City and Los Angeles, have local minimum wages higher than their state's requirement, with new wage hikes still occurring, according to EPI. Chicago's minimum wage rose to $16.20 per hour this month. 2022, the Biden administration also increased the minimum wage for 70,000 federal workers and 300,000 federal contractors to $15 per hour, and urged Congress to do the same for all workers. Now, here's a fun chart. I think you guys can see the whole thing here. The federal minimum wage hasn't increased since 2009. So this is our actual minimum wage, 25 cents an hour back in 1938. And since 2009, it's been $7.25 an hour. Up here, we got this dotted line. This shows adjusted for inflation. So when it started, 25 cents an hour in 1938 is equivalent to $5.57 an hour today, or as of June of 2024. So as of last month. So we're not far off from where it started. That is adjusted for inflation. And I don't know how they figure that. If it's just the inflation of the dollar bill, but then when you look at the inflation of all the other goods and services as well, I don't think 557 would be cutting it, because I don't think the 725 is cutting it, right? So you see here, the peak was in 1968, the equivalence of $14.44 an hour. And then since then, due to inflation and due to the lack of the increase of federal minimum wages, it's just gone down more and more and more and more, to where now we're looking at $7.25 an hour versus I'm trying to see. Yeah, it hasn't been that low in value since 1949. 528 hours. The last time it was less was in 1949 when adjusted for inflation. I think we're far overdue for an increase in minimum wage, be it federal minimum wage or whatever, I don't care. I think we're past due for an increase in minimum wage. Again, I'm looking at this chart. I remember my minimum wage. Let's see. I know I cleared it off your screen. I'm looking at mine. When I started, minimum wage was $5.15 an hour. It was $5.15 an hour. And at the time, adjusted for inflation, that would be equivalent to $9.40 an hour right now. So I was making the equivalence of $2.15 more than what today's actual minimum wage is. And I remember I was doing okay. I mean, I was, 16-year-old kid, 17-year-old kid, whatever. What was I? 16-year-old kid, bagging groceries, getting tips back when people used to do that. And even the other jobs after that, I was doing okay for, little high school kid going into college or whatever. Or I think people have a hard time with that with $7.25 an hour right now. So yeah, I do think it needs to go up. I don't think there ever needs to be something so drastic that the market and that businesses and our economy as a whole can't adjust accordingly. I know people say this, and I think it's dumb. If you've said this, I don't think you're dumb. I think the sentiment is dumb. Well, if someone should get $15 an hour for flipping burgers, then EMTs should get paid $15 an hour, or they should get paid more than $15. You're making an absolutely factual statement. The problem, though, with that is not the minimum wage being $15 an hour. It's that they're only paying the EMTs such and such amount, whatever it was. Because a lot of these businesses have failed, even though they've been profitable, they have failed to increase their payout, right, through payroll, wages, whatever. They've failed to increase those accordingly based off of their own personal growth. We see that all the time with the corporate greed stuff like Disney and all these major corporations laying folks off because of, money and monetary issues and all this and that, while they're giving their CEO multi-million-dollar bonuses. It just doesn't make any sense. Again, I hinted at this earlier, something that I think would be great. Again, this is just kind of a thought that I've had, but Congress can vote to give itself a raise, right? I think there needs to be some caveats to that, right? So first, I don't think Congress should be able to give itself a raise if we have not decreased our federal deficit. If we are still if we still have a deficit, let me reword that, because deficit and debt are two different things. We've discussed that before. If we have not decreased our debt, if we are adding more into our debt, meaning that we do have a deficit, then I don't think they should be able to give themselves a raise because they haven't done a good job with our money. So why should they get more money? Secondly, I think minimum wage should be tied to what they increase. So if they give themselves a 3, 4, 5, 6% increase, then I think that we need to take a look and see if maybe federal minimum wage needs to have that same increase. I don't know how that goes. Just a pitch, just a thought. Something's crossed my mind before. I hate the idea that Congress can get up there, do absolutely nothing, and continue to give themselves their own raises and attaboys and all that good fun stuff, while we are getting deeper and deeper in the hole, more and more in debt. The economy's not improving. Minimum wage hasn't increased. People's lives are getting worse overall, but they can give themselves a raise. Doesn't sit well with me. Doesn't make sense to me. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section below. Maybe I'm onto something, or maybe I'm just out of my mind. I don't know. What do you guys think? Should the minimum wage be increased? Do you have a number that you'd like to see it increase to? Do you think it should be an immediate thing, something that happens over time? Or do you think we should just abolish it altogether? What are your thoughts on it? I would love to hear what you have to say in the comment section below. Our next story here is from MovieWeb, and this is going to be our final story of the show today. Again, this is a shorter show. But this is for MovieWeb, and I'm really only covering it because one name popped up in here. And if you watch my channel, I do reactions. I talk about being a filmmaker myself, but also being a huge music fan. My favorite band is Metallica. What sucks is I did a reaction of a song with James and Rob from Metallica playing with Apocalyptica, which I thought was going to be awesome. And that actually was one of the more disappointing reactions that I did. I did not enjoy it, but that's just me. But I'm a huge fan of both Apocalyptica and Metallica, and it kind of stunk. It was a stinker for me. It was a cover of their song One, which again made me think it was going to be even more awesome. But yeah, I give my honest reviews. Again, I'll have some reactions going up this week, so if those are your thing, check them out for sure. I am very honest. If I like something, if I don't like something, I do pick it apart. Somebody called me the Bob Ross of reviews or reactions. And so I do get a little animated in my verbiage and, description of things, but it's because I'm very, very passionate about it. So I saw this article come across the mentioning of Metallica, specifically Metallica singer, which of course is James Hetfield, one of the greatest frontmen of all time, one of the greatest rock vocalists of all time. I could just listen to him talk. He sounds like metal with his rasp and his deep voice, and just it's awesome. Oh, it's so awesome. I remember watching South Park, Bigger, Longer, Uncut, the movie, and there was a song that came on when Kenny died and went to heaven, and he was denied and he got sent down to hell, and it came on. And it was some rock music, and I was like, that's pretty cool. And then I heard the vocals, goes, "Little boy, you're going to hell." And I was like, wait a second, I know that vocalist. That's my boy James. And it was James Hetfield doing the vocals for that song. So if you haven't seen that, that's a funny movie. I do like South Park. They tend to poke at everybody, and I greatly appreciate that, because they don't always just go after one side. They do poke at both sides, all sides, and they have fun. And I think they're very funny. Moving on to the story. Again, this is all it is, just as that you see on the screen. We're just going to look at that. And I think we have a trailer up top. King of the Dwarves, Peter Dinklage, which I've got beef with him. And so do a lot of dwarf actors because of his comments on Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And now they don't have the Seven Dwarfs in the new Snow White movie, but I've already covered that in another story in the past. But apparently he speaks for all dwarf actors. So, King Dwarf over here. Peter Dinklage and Metallica singer star in the trailer for Western thriller The Thicket. Check out the trailer for the upcoming indie thriller The Thicket, starring Peter Dinklage, Juliette Lewis, who's awesome, Levon Hawke, don't know him, Esme Creed or her, Esme Creed Miles, James Hetfield, yeah, Macon Blair, and Andrew Schultz. The film is directed by Elliot Lester, Blitz, Aftermath, Nightingale, and will be in theaters September 6th. Set at the turn of the century, The Thicket follows an innocent young man, Jack Hawke, who goes on an epic quest to rescue his sister, Lula Creed Miles, after she has been kidnapped by the violent killer Cutthroat Bill Lewis and her gang. To save her, Jack enlists the help of a crafty bounty hunter named Reginald Jones Dinklage, a grave-digging alcoholic son of an ex-slave, Akhenabi, and a street-smart prostitute, Grace. The gang tracks Cutthroat Bill into the deadly no-man's land known as The Thicket, a place where blood and chaos reign. Western. I hope I get to see James Hetfield in here. That's really the only reason I'm watching this. I will say this too. Back on here. Guys, Hollywood is really dropping the ball. I know you know that. You've seen it yourself. You've seen me, Nerdrotic, Geeks and Gamers, Talking Nerds, so many folks talking about it. Hollywood and Toto is a great example of someone who harps on this all the time. Hollywood is not cranking out their best. I want to pull a Trump here, but they're not sending their best. Indie filmmakers are really doing a phenomenal job right now. And of course, this is coming from an internationally award-winning indie filmmaker. Thank you very much. But I mean it. I mean, like, when you look at it, the indie studios or indie filmmakers that are out there doing it are doing a phenomenal job right now and cranking out stuff. Now, some of it may not be the best stuff ever, but when you compare it to what Hollywood is doing with these huge Hollywood bloated budgets, these huge names that are involved, all the promotions and everything they got going on, and you compare it to something more indie, the indies are just killing it. So I hope this is good. Again, I'm excited to see James. If I don't see James, I'm going to be pretty bummed. Instantly going to thumb down this thing.
I know who you are.
Who am I?
Cutthroat Bill.
Dang.
My brother's gonna come looking for me.
He can't save you.
We dug your grave. Now pay me.
Or what?
All right, so there's James. I feel like I saw James.
Or
Yeah, there's James right there too.
what?
Yeah, there was James standing up right there too. I'm sorry, I'm focused on James Hetfield. I've never seen him in a movie.
Bill stole my sister. That fella told me he'd help. There's a bounty on her. $10,000.
You work for me 3 ways on the bounty. I say what, I say when. You ever shoot a man?
No, I'm a Christian.
God knows how many this cutthroat has.
3 against now.
2 against. You're a Christian.
Where's she taking me?
The ticket.
Are you gonna kill me when we get there?
You're lucky I saved you.
Interesting direction that's going in. We saw a motorcycle already. I'm assuming a motorcycle. Peter Dinklage is a fine actor. I think he's a whatever. Fine actor, though. Not going to take anything away from him. I do think we have the DEI still going on where we have to cast people of color and sexual orientation and, like with him, of size. So you know, we check all of our boxes and stuff. I say that I'd be interested to see how this film does with him, but he doesn't seem very intimidating as a little guy in that role. And I mean that respectfully to anybody who's little, dwarf, little person, whatever you want to be called. But, yeah, if I saw him running at me, I mean, he might get scrapped. Don't get me wrong. It's just big time bounty hunter guy. You know, he's taking them out. Just not super buying it right off the bat, but you know, whatever.
You do find her. It's probably not the sister you remember.
What if she don't want to come with us? She might have forgot. I was starting to like you.
Andrew Schultz.
You hung so scary. How come nobody put a gun to my head? You're the littlest man I ever seen.
You're the ugliest.
Now, of course, I do like me some Juliette Lewis. I mean, I can't tell you how many great films that she's been in. So, so I think they got a pretty good cast going there. Could be a really great film. Could be a big turd. I don't know. I don't think I'm interested enough necessarily to run out and see it in the theaters, to be honest with you. I did like that it mentioned that it was a, where to say it at? It's a thriller. I wonder how far that goes, how much of a thriller it is, not just a regular cowboy flick. So I do like that with a lot of times what you'll find with like indie films is they'll cross genre. One of the bands that I've done a lot of is Falling in Reverse. And I've noticed there's not a genre. I mean, they're rock, sure, but they do rap, they do soft stuff, heavy stuff, whatever. They're very genre bending in what they do. Indie filmmakers do that a lot too. I mean, we're working on our first feature length script right now, and it pushes a couple of barriers for genres. So, hoping to finish that and eventually get that created and share that with you guys. That would be really cool to be able to share a new film with you guys since you've been watching me. But yeah, I mean, that looks interesting. I love the fact that James is in there. So I'll probably see it for James, but it looks like it would be a very interesting flick, even with King Dwarf in there. But that's pretty much all I got for you guys today. Again, I told you it was going to be a shorter show. I don't know how short it's been because I have kind of been flapping at the jaws a little bit, but I will have some more reactions coming out this week, so stay tuned for those. But that's it, guys. Thanks for tuning in this week. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. Hope I didn't push anybody away and actually educated and did my part in being a net positive overall for anyone who's watching. But look, I love you guys. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget our shows come out every Friday at 10 a.m. And then the little the nuggets segments, whatever, those get cut up and released throughout the week. Reactions will be done and released throughout the week as well from time to time. So make sure you subscribe and turn on that notifications bell so you can be notified when the next video comes out. And if you hadn't already, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, follow, all that good fun stuff. And we will see you on the next one.
You ever see like a girl, maybe it's a Saturday night and she thinks she's hot shit and she's drunk and she's coming from the bar and she's real sloppy like, and she's like, I'm a 10, and you're like, bitch, you're mid.
Damn.